Joining us now is Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Let's welcome Frank Zaccanelli.
Live from the Real News Studios in Dallas, Texas, welcome to the To Be Frank Show. Your host, Frank Zaccanelli, has been in the world of domestic and international business and professional sports for 40 years. And as a former minority owner, president, and general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, he's been asked to comment on current events in the national news for most of his professional career. But what he and many others are really looking for is a place to find just the facts. Welcome to the To Be Frank Show.
Hello there, live from Dallas, Texas, the To Be Frank Show. And we're really happy to be with you today. We got a big show today. Got a lot of hot topics. I'll tell you, no better time to do a show like this because every day there's something new that comes out that is so newsworthy. But the first segment that we're going to cover is indicative of why I do this show. And I'm going to explain all that in just a second. But we're really happy to be with you today. You can follow us on the To Be Frank Show YouTube, the To Be Frank Show Twitter, the To Be Frank Show LinkedIn, and the To Be Frank Show Facebook, and also the ToBeFrankShow.com. So you can follow us. The show is growing at an incredibly rapid rate. It's a little scary for me because we're getting a lot of viewers. And so I have to continue to up my game every time that I come on because, you know, people are really watching shows like this so they can get the facts. They can get the unadulterated, unhomogenized, unpasteurized version of the news instead of what they're getting on cable television or network television. So we're happy to be with you today on this beautiful Monday from Dallas, and let's get into the show. Okay, on Saturday, Trump signs an executive order, and he holds a huge press conference, and the executive order that he signs, I'm going to cover with everybody on what it actually does. But here's the deal. When you look at the coverage from the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation, you think you're looking at two different stories. This is the problem in today's media. This is why we do the show, is because we try to cut through all this ideology and all of this following, political following, if you will, where people have chosen sides like a basketball game, basically then got in the arena and are paid a ton of money to be able to try to figure out, how they can spew their side of the equation. These people on cable television, they're making a ridiculous amount of money. And the network people, it's unbelievable. And they're paid, quite frankly, not really to give you the news. They're paid to basically give you the spin. What we're trying to do is cut through it. And what Trump did on Saturday, there's some good, and there's some, I wouldn't even say not so good, but some it doesn't really matter kind of thing. He did it because it was a good political move to do. I see from a political standpoint it made sense. But we're going to get into exactly what he did and why he had to do it. And then we're going to run a tape. Okay, so he did really 5 things on Saturday. Let me cover these. Postpone payroll taxes through the end of the year. If you make less than $104,000 a year, they are going to postpone, not get rid of, but postpone your payroll taxes through the end of the year. Number 2, they're going to extend the unemployment bonus $400 per week. Now that's down from $600, but that's what they're going to do with his executive order, is extend it at $400 a week. He's then going to waive student debt payments through the end of 2020. He is then going to instruct his key officials to consider whether there should be a ban on evictions because of this pandemic. So he's going to instruct his people to get in the middle of this. And then the last thing he's going to do is he's going to insist on state governments to pick up some of the tab for the unemployment aid. Now, that has caused some issues because it's all politics, okay? You can imagine the red states are probably going to go along with it. The blue states are going to say, hell no, we don't want to be involved with this. It's not something that we're going to do. And so you get into this back and forth, back and forth. Now, what created this scenario is the fact that they want to pass another stimulus bill. Now, why are they passing another stimulus bill? That's a whole nother category because some states have opened up unsuccessfully on some of them a little bit more successful, and some states have refused to open up. Look at New York State. You go to upstate New York, which I know a lot of people in upstate New York, and you go up there, they got less than a 1% positive test rate. And the governor's got this thing locked down like it's Fort Knox. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You got to feel like there's political motivations in an election year that's causing this. I mean, restaurants are still, not really opened up there. There's still all kinds of restrictions. And you have to wonder, okay, are these people in these states doing this because they are doing it for political purposes? Because there's got to be, as we mentioned on this show over and over and over, a happy medium between opening up your state and then figuring out how to do it safely, because people have got to get back to work. The economic hardship of this is just almost as bad as the pandemic side, or maybe equally as bad. Now again, Florida, the governor down there, DeSantis, he blew it. Shooting his mouth off at the Oval Office, he blew it. The governor of Texas, not a great job. Arizona, not a great job. Parts of the South, some good, some bad, mixed bag here and there. But we've got to figure out, as a country, we should be working together, both sides of the equation, to figure out how to get to that happy medium between opening up your country and providing the aid necessary because of this pandemic. The Democrats wanted to pass, get this now, another $3 trillion, not million, not billion, trillion. The next one's gazillion, okay? So you're not going to go much higher than this one. $3 trillion. And the Republicans said, well, we're happy with $1 trillion, bill. And here's where we have it. We've been talking about the national debt on this show. The national debt is $23.7 trillion and climbing. We're in a $900 billion deficit every year. Where the hell is this money coming from? I made a joke last show. I got some laughs out of it. Every time my mother wanted to spend money, my father would say, well, what do you got, a money tree out in the backyard? Do they have a money tree that no one knows about in Washington, D.C.? These are people that are spending other people's money. This is like a high-end decorator. They come in and tell you that you need 27 different revisions and you look up and you just spent $100,000. Okay? They're spending your money. It's the same thing in Washington. Roll the tape.
President Trump says while you and congressional Democrats were pushing your agenda, he acted yesterday to help people in need. Take a look.
Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have chosen to hold this vital assistance hostage on behalf of very extreme partisan demands, and the radical left Democrats said we just can't do that.
However it came about, and I know you don't like the executive action, won't millions of Americans now get some extended federal unemployment relief and some protection from evictions? Get that now rather than getting nothing at all.
No, in fact, what the president did is, I agree with the Republican senator said, it was unconstitutional slop. While it has the illusion of saying we're going to have a moratorium on evictions, it says, I'm going to ask you the folks in charge to study if that's feasible. While he says he's going to do the payroll tax, what he's doing is undermining Social Security and Medicare. So these are illusions, and they really do not, what he calls in our bill, unnecessary. Let's just review the difference. First of all, millions of children in our country are food insecure. Our bill addresses that with tens of billions of dollars. Feed the children. The Republican bill has $250,000. While our bill addresses those who are on the brink of eviction, we use the numbers from the Princeton Eviction Lab and the Low-Income Housing Coalition to show how many people will be evicted and what their needs are, and that could come to tens of billions of dollars. The Republican bill has nothing.
The Princeton Eviction Lab. All right, now, everybody who's watching, my team, let's get on what the hell the Princeton Eviction Lab is. She just quoted it, okay? I don't know what the hell it is. But here's the bottom line. $3 trillion of additional spending. I understand why the Republicans push back. Again, we're not a political show. We're not taking Democrats, Republicans. But I mean, you know, they want to figure out how the hell they can spend more and more and more and more money. Where's this money coming from? We still don't even pay our bills. If Nancy Pelosi, with the way that she's operating the government on the congressional side, ran your household, you'd be in bankruptcy court. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Now, again, there are people that need help. But we can't have half the country that's shut down, half the country that opened up. They're shut down because there are political reasons why they're shut down, okay? Now, again, these guys in the South, these red states in the South, they blew it. We've said it from the beginning. But we got to have a happy medium because you can't spend $3 trillion to the Princeton whatever the hell lab she's talking about. Somebody look that up. I'd like to know what the hell that is, okay? So here's the issue. The Donald did a very smart political move on Saturday. It wasn't a dumb political move. Have a press conference and say a bunch of stuff that you're going to try to do. Now, the most of this stuff doesn't really amount to very much. It's going to have legal challenges, but it was a good political move. Now, is he negotiating with the Democrats? I can't tell you. I don't know. But if I was negotiating with the Democrats, right, and I wanted to come up with another $1 trillion bill, which is still an enormous amount of money, I would have probably done the same thing that he did. Hold a press conference, say a bunch of stuff, really doesn't amount to much, but it was enough to upset them and have her go on TV and all this other stuff. Again, I don't know why people can't sit in a room and figure this out. But in order to figure it out, you can't just come up with stimulus plans. You got to figure out how to safely open up the country. And here comes another one down the pike. The schools are getting ready to open. If they screw that up, man, oh man, you know, we're gonna be all over it, but it's gonna be not so good 30 days from now. I can promise you that. All right, we're gonna keep an eye on that subject. All right, segment 2. The Portland scenario. Let's call it what the hell you want to call it, okay? Teddy Wheeler, Mayor of the Year. Well, tied actually with the Summer of Love Mayor in Seattle. And then actually they're tied for second place, the more I think about it. Bill de Blasio is the heavyweight champ of the world in terms of being the worst mayor ever to be elected to anything. Bill de Blasio, when he is done, and we're going to get to him in a little bit later, when he's done with his term, he will not be able to be elected dog catcher, okay? Can't be elected dog catcher, won't win, all right? Let's roll the first Portland clip, and then we're going to get into a lot of the meat of this issue.
Welcome, Sean Foyt. Sean, thanks for being here. I remember inviting you back because you said, I'm going to Portland, and I said, you got to tell me how it's going. Tell me what you saw in Portland.
Man, I took you at your word. I am excited to share with you some good news from Portland. Excellent. Last night we gathered thousands of people that came together. The church showed up in Waterfront Park, And we don't have the total estimate. Somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 is what they're estimating. And we gathered together, white, black, Hispanic. We came, we released our song of hope over this city. People gave their life to Jesus, hundreds of people. We baptized people in the river behind us. And I mean, it was so much joy that took over the streets of that city last night.
The Portland police declared that a riot broke out after a crowd marched on the police union building. Police said a mortar injured 2 police officers, 16 people were arrested. Okay? I don't know what we're going to do with this type of scenario. I don't know what you do, okay? You got a mayor in Ted Wheeler that is so lost. And I've said this over and over and over. Mayors are just nice people. They're really, really nice people. They're friendly people. They go to rallies. They get elected. They go to rubber chicken dinners. You ever been to a rubber chicken dinner? It's when everybody gets the same piece of white meat. You can hardly cut it. And then you hear some boring speech for about 45 minutes and you leave. Okay? This is what it is. Mayors in these cities are not qualified to be able to handle the mess that is now in some of our major cities. But guys like Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, this guy has created his own problems. He's the guy that said, get the federal agents out of here and we're going to have peace and love and prosperity and everything else. Well, guess what? That didn't happen, okay? That didn't happen. They're still rioting there. They're still breaking the law there. And it's not just there, okay? It's still in other cities around the country. This lawlessness all around the fact that George Floyd was wrongfully murdered, and he was. Anybody that doesn't know that, don't get out of bed in the morning. But the fact of the matter is, these riots and all this stuff that's been going on are in direct proportion to these anarchists. These aren't protesters. These aren't people that care about really creating change. Yeah, I take that back. They care about creating change. They want to change the whole country. Okay? They want to change the whole country. Okay? But this nice gentleman, whoever the hell he is, okay, you know, he went up there and did whatever he did. It's not stopping up there because there's no fear that anything is really bad going to happen to people that are still destroying properties. Think about if you owned a business in downtown Portland. All of you that are watching the show, think about your own businesses and think about if they were under siege like this. Roll the second tape.
Now in our city.
And here's a stat that supports his claim. A new poll, Gallup poll, shows 81% of black Americans want police to maintain or increase a presence in their communities. Juan, I'll go to you. Has this movement on police reform been hijacked? We've heard a lot of Democrats deny either that Antifa is real or that there's a difference between the slogan of Black Lives Matter and the Marxist agenda of leadership of Black Lives Matter. Has a moment been hijacked, as the police chief says?
No, gosh, I think it's still like 60+% of Americans support the Black Lives Matter movement. But Pete, they do not support, and I couldn't agree more with the police chief. They don't support defund the police. That's Republican, Democrat, black, white, Asian, Latino. That's not something that people support. What they really are focused on is police reform so that you don't have police using brutal tactics, abusing their powers, treating black people like they're lesser citizens with no rights. That's what people are concerned about. In terms of, the violence that you see in these pictures that keeps being repeated from the first night way back, I think people are able to separate it out and say, that's not in keeping with the idea of people who march peacefully to say
that's what happening right now.
The police behavior needs to be reined in.
Okay, Juan, he actually made sense for about 90% of that speech that he just gave. You know, going to rein the police in. Okay. The police need to be restructured. The police need to quit killing black people for no reason. Okay. They need to quit killing anybody for no reason, but especially African Americans. But here's a quote from Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland. Here's his quote. He says to rioters, "You have become a prop to the Trump re-election campaign." I mean, are you kidding me? A prop? This is all about just lawlessness that I've said over and over the Democrats better run from, because this is not what the American public is going to vote for in November. Okay? They're just not going to do it. These aren't protesters. These are anarchists. They're rioters. Just take a look at the tape. Okay? There is no answer for this other than to stop the looting, stop the rioting, and jail people that are unlawful. There's no other way to do it. Trump decides he wants to send the feds up, okay? The feds go in there, and Teddy Wheeler, mayor of the year almost next to Blasio, tied with Summer of Love, basically sits there and says, well, don't become a prop for the Trump campaign. They set the feds in there because you wouldn't allow the police to clean it up. This is just ridiculous. This is anarchy. You can't have it in our country. This is not doing anything to the memory of George Floyd. This isn't doing anything to change the standards in the Black Lives Matter movement. This isn't doing anything except running people in a completely opposite direction from what we're supposed to be really concerning ourselves with about how do we change our country for the better. What this is doing is allowing people to sit back and say, see, you can't trust these people. You see, you can't do this. This is something for the Democrats, I'm telling you. You can't back this kind of leadership in these liberal cities and expect that you're going to carry the election. This is your coronavirus. Trump blew the coronavirus. He's pivoted. He watches the show. We'll get into that later. And then you can't have a lawlessness agenda because Trump, number one, is going to hang it around your neck. So you got to get with these rubber chicken mayors, if you will, and you got to figure out what the hell you're going to do about it. But they've got to run their cities. Law and order has to be the name of the game. That's all you can talk about. Okay? All right. The third segment is my favorite segment, maybe since I started doing the show. All right? We've got the Donald. Now, I can call him the Donald. Number one, he secretly watches the show from the Oval Office. Ivana, his first wife, had a problem a little bit with English. And instead of calling him Donald, she called him the Donald. So now, to everybody who's out there that's ever followed the guy, he's the Donald. Yeah, he's the President of the United States, deserves to be dealt with respect, okay? Just like Obama did, just like Clinton did, just like Bush. If you're the president, respect the office if you don't like the person. But the Donald is now caught up, unfortunately, but thanks to this for our show, in another controversy. He is reported by the New York Times, now you can't believe a word they write, that he wants to be the fifth symbol on Mount Rushmore. So in other words, you're going to have Abe Lincoln, and the Donald is going to be next to Abe on Mount Rushmore. This is what the New York Times is saying his plan is. Now, the Donald has called it out as fake news, the whole shooting match. You can't believe anything that the New York Times writes. They have a 0 credibility rating. And that's not political, but they do. They have a 0 credibility rating. But the Donald is in a position now where he's having to answer this. Now, I'm going to give you a stat, okay? And I looked this one up, so this one's real. In 2018, Governor Kristi Noem, who I really like, she's doing a nice job up there. She is a really good speaker. I like her. Confirmed that in an Oval Office meeting in 2018, the Donald asked her about it. Okay? She's confirmed this now. I got this not out of the New York Times, not out of anything. I got it from a Forbes publication. Okay? That a 2018 Oval Office meeting produced the Donald asking the governor, hey, what about this? Roll the tape.
Now, here's what I do. I'd ask whether or not you think I will someday be on Mount Rushmore, but here's the problem. If I did it joking, totally joking, having fun, the fake news media will say he believes he should be on Mount Rushmore. So I won't say it, okay? I won't say it.
Okay. That's a campaign rally, all right? He's having some fun. The Kristi Noem comment, though, out of the Oval Office is a little scary. But here at the To Be Frank show, as people know, part of my background is I'm a real estate developer. So here's what I want the Donald to know. Me and my company will find him a mountain. We will find him something that is in resemblance to Mount Rushmore. I don't know where the hell it's going to be yet, but that's something that we do. We'll find it. It's going to be about 10, 15 million bucks. That's no money to him. We're going to buy the mountain, and then we're going to hire somebody, and it'll be Mount Trump. We're going to call it Mount Trump. Now, if Joe Biden beats him in November, that's going to become even problematic because he's a one-term president, so that's not going to be good. But I think that what he should do, he's a real estate developer. We have real estate services. We can help him. We'll do it free of charge. Mount Trump. We just got to figure out where we can do it. We'll get the bust up there. It'll be the Donald. Probably a full statue. Who the hell knows? Or maybe the head bust. We'll figure it out. But this is the kind of ridiculousness with all of our problems, with the coronavirus, with unemployment, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with riots in our cities. This is the kind of stuff that people are talking about, that the New York Times takes actually the space on their newspaper to actually write about, okay? They actually take the time to do it. And in some ways, maybe it's the lighter side to every damn problem that we've got that it doesn't appear to me that the people in Washington can fix. But again, Donald secretly, from the Oval Office, he's watching. If you want some help with this, we'll do it free of charge. Mount Trump. Forget Mount Rushmore. You already got 4 guys over there. Let's have your own mountain. Okay. Segment 4, the coronavirus and the NFL. So let's cover this one. I've got an NBA background, and I have to tell you, Adam Silver and team and the NBA in the bubble in Orlando has done the best job, I think, humanly possible to have an end to the season. I was against it in the beginning. But actually, you have to admit when you're wrong. I think it actually is working, okay? They've got a bubble. They've got incredible screening. We had Brand Townsend from the Dallas Morning News, who's in the bubble, who was on the show several shows ago, that talked about all the requirements and all the scrutiny and everything else. And it looks to me like they're having a season that is safely done. Now, let's go over to the other side of the equation. Baseball. Rob Manfred, who I'm not a big fan of. I've said this on the show, and I'll say it again today. Okay? They go into this thing. They could have easily created a bubble scenario somewhere in Florida, Arizona, or in both places. They easily could have followed the NBA blueprint. They could have done it, but they didn't do it. And now, every week, you don't know who's playing, who's not, who's suspended 5 games because they got 12 people that are infected. I mean, this is just what it is, okay? I mean, they should have known better. And baseball is actually a sport that you could play in a bubble. You need baseball fields. You're going to have no fans. You need some hotels. You invite the media in, and you follow the NBA. You follow the NBA deal here. You follow their blueprint, okay? I don't know how many of you watched the golf yesterday. You know, they pulled it off. The PGA pulled it off wonderfully. Yeah, there were no loud roars and everything, but what a competitive tournament. The players are safe. The announcers are safe. They have a game plan, okay, that fits their sport. Now, they play their sport outside. That does help, all right? And you really take a look at what they've done. Okay, they test and they do all the stuff. It's all important, and golf is working. I don't know when we're ever going to have fans back to anything, but at least now you turn on your television, you got live sports. Let's get to the NFL.
The country is in the middle of a pandemic. Football's great, but you got to sit this season out.
Yeah, I think people are trying to be really thoughtful about this, and I think people do look at risk and risk mitigation in different ways. But I feel like it's the right thing to do to try to learn to live with this virus.
Dr. Alan Sills is Chief Medical Officer for the NFL. We're both neurosurgeons, and we've known each other for several years.
Can we find ways to do that safely? You know, that's our challenge.
The last NFL game was February 2nd of this year. Super Bowl 54, the Chiefs beat the 49ers 31-20.
2 days earlier, the U.S. declared a public health emergency because of coronavirus.
Emergency in the United States.
Since then, millions of people have become infected, more than 140,000 have died, and now the NFL wants to do the seemingly impossible.
It's up.
Bring back some sense of normalcy to one of the largest sports leagues in the country.
Okay. My producer told me that we've had about a 10-second lapse on the voice thing. So just to go back again, I was really picking on Roger Goodell. If it blanked out for 10 seconds, our apologies. But I'm picking on Roger Goodell for being a knucklehead. All right, you just saw now that clip. And here's the issue. How are they going to do this safely? Because I promise you this, the players are not going to play if they think that it's unsafe. They're not going to do it. And 67 have already opted out. They're not going to play. They're not going to do it. And you got to really wonder what's going to happen once these training camps get opened up and once they get ready to try to have a season. Now, it's completely 1,000% that you're not going to have fans at NFL games. Let's take a look at what happened with 5 of the power conferences in college football. They're talking now about not having a college football season. Now that becomes even more important because here are guys that aren't being paid to play. Okay? These are college athletes that now are going to go out there and in some ways put themselves at risk for their university in order to play a college football season. Okay? The 5 power conferences are now talking about, all right, what do we do here? How do we really handle this? All right? Can we really have a season? I don't think that they can because I think that the risks, especially in college football, outweigh the rewards. If I'm the commissioner of the NFL, I'm coming up with a plan that the players can buy off on. Okay? I'm coming up with a plan that the players and the owners can buy off on. Because between you and me, when it comes to now the revenue of the NFL is television, television, television. The TV networks are going to pay the freight. They're going to air these games if the games are aired. You just got to figure out how you could put these players in a position to where they can figure out how to be safe. Now, for a 16-game season, can you lock people up for, 16 weeks? I don't think so. There's got to be then some modification to the NFL as it relates to the NBA model. There's got to be some modifications. But they better figure this out. This is the same equation in everything that we deal with in today's world. It's the same equation. You have to figure out how you open up safely. Schools, cities, restaurants, sports. Again, A pluses to the NBA, A pluses to the PGA Tour, D minuses to baseball, hockey, I don't even know what the hell's going on there. But the NFL which is the big boy, they've got to figure out what they do. Okay. Let's go to the next segment. My glasses got away from me. Oh, this is another beauty. We've got our man, our favorite man, the mayor of New York, Billy de Blasio. All right? He's in the news again. Well, the guy's in the news constantly because he's, again, he is, if you want to say that, you know, I use the word knucklehead, he's the knucklehead of all knuckleheads. All right? Like the king knucklehead guy. That's the way you've got to view this guy. Okay? He has essentially wrecked the greatest city in the United States and one of the greatest cities in the world. And he has done it with his own political ideology that has run the city, its people, its businesses, its health and safety into the ground. And he's done it without my man Andrew Cuomo, son of Mario Cuomo, the greatest governor in New York history, Mario Cuomo. Okay? He has done it without any interference from the governor. I thought the governor is supposed to kind of manage some of this stuff. And when they see something going in such a terrible direction, but all the governor wants to do is get on his brother's show and talk about what a great job he's doing. And again, we don't pick on his brother's show. I pick on every show. Because all the shows are all about is what they want you to know. Let's get back to the first segment, okay? That story, the Donald doing what he did, and Nancy Pelosi and on the executive order to try to get people money in their pockets, it was covered from two different planets, Pluto and Mars. Okay, the same story. We get back to the same thing here with New York City. There's really no other way to cover this. First of all, Cuomo decides that he's got a 31-state ban that's still in place. Okay? Technically, I can't even go back to upstate New York now. He's got a ban. Okay? The ban is so ridiculous, it's pathetic. All right? You know, you test up, and I had a friend that got a call from the health department and basically said, sir, you've been exposed to the virus, so you got to go get tested. Get this. Now, this is in upstate New York. I can't make this up. He goes and gets tested. They tell him he's got to quarantine for 10 days. They told him we'll give you the test back in 11 to 12 days. How the hell does that work? That's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Okay? Now, for me, I can go up to a private clinic here, pay $250, and get test results in 2 hours. How the hell does that work? This is the whole point. You know, you want to complain about everything, Governor Cuomo, and you want to complain about this and complain about that. How the hell do you justify a test taken 12 days when you're told to quarantine for 10 days? What the hell good does that do to somebody? Okay? That's a real life story. So you go on and on and on about this. You get back now to Bill de Blasio. He was called out by a council person as the worst mayor in American history. Okay? I second the motion. All right? Let's have a roll call vote. I second the motion. Roll the tape.
Safety concerns. Let's bring in New York Congressman Max Rose. Congressman, thanks for being here. Of course, he's having to answer to the teachers who are saying, we don't feel safe going back. So how do you get everybody on board for the same plan?
Yeah, no, well, thank you for having me. I think it's important that we take a step back here and set the table. This mayor is not only the worst mayor in the history of New York City, he's the worst mayor in the history of this great country. They have not put out a plan for opening the schools. They put out a prayer, an outline at best. So there's a few things that we should be focusing on here. The first is testing. There is no reason to say that every single teacher in New York City should not be tested at least every day, every other day. We can resource that. Secondly, we should be pushing funds to our educational systems across the country to make sure that there's enough PPE as well as infrastructure for social distancing. But nothing can replace leadership. And I don't blame anyone, to include teachers, parents, families, for not having faith in this mayor right now. It is an utter disgrace.
All right, Max Rose is a Democrat. All right, he's in Bill de Blasio's, sphere, okay? He's a New York Democrat. All right, he's also an Afghan combat veteran. He can't lie about this anymore. No matter what the party says, he can't lie about this anymore. You got Baghdad Bill. Remember Baghdad Bob, okay, on a prior show. Baghdad Bob, the minister of misinformation for Saddam Hussein. Tanks are coming in. Oh, we pushed the Americans back. They're taking down the statue while he's holding the press conference. That's Baghdad Bill, okay? Baghdad Bill de Blasio can't tell the truth. His ideology is driving an incredible amount of mistakes that he makes, the way that he goes about it, defunding the police for $1 billion. He's kicked sand in the face of the #1 police force in the world. Okay, any city, I don't care. I'll put the NYPD up against anybody. The stuff that they've dealt with, the stuff that they deal with, the terrorist threats, everything. All he's done is kick sand in their face for ideology and political reasons. Billy D. de Blasio does not like his country, okay? He doesn't like our system. In some ways, the guy's bought off. I mean, nobody could be this stupid, all right? But you got Max Rose, who's a solid guy. This guy has got all the credentials, who's in Bill de Blasio's party that basically called him the worst mayor, not only in New York's history, but in the history of the United States. Now, let me give you some facts. Numbers don't lie. Crime is up in New York City significantly. If you side with the criminals, this is what you get, okay? This is just what you get. When you side with criminals against the police department. Now, again, policing is not perfect. It's not. African Americans have been put at undue risk. The George Floyd scenario, I hope, has opened up everyone's eyes to the fact that policing is not perfect. But to defund the police, to kick sand in the police's face, and to do it all in the name of change is insanity. Homicides are up 21%. Shootings in New York City in the last 3, 4, 5 months, Bill de Blasio's, shining hour, are up 46%. And this is all published in multiple national news articles. These are not numbers that the To Be Frank show is just making up. These are numbers that are verified, that are out there, that are coming out of New York City's information. Murders are up 30%. Think about this. Murders are up 30% in New York City. I remember when I was a kid and we'd come down to New York City for a day or two with my parents. It was a great road trip. And we'd get in the car and it's about, 3.5 hour drive. And we'd go around New York City and I'm a kid and I'm looking at all these buildings. New York City during that time was dirty. There were a lot of criminal problems. There were a lot of issues. But it was still the most enticing place that you've ever been to, especially as a kid. You look at it now, you got people moving out of New York City in droves, okay? Businesses are moving out. Nobody's going to put up with this de Blasio garbage. Nobody. How are the voters putting up with it? How is the governor? Figlio di Mario. That's an Italian term for son of Mario. Mario Cuomo. My father's hero and the greatest governor ever in New York State's history. How does Andrew Cuomo justify this? What is he doing? He's sitting in Albany looking out the window? I mean, how are you allowing for this de Blasio to wreck the #1 city in the United States and one of the top cities in the world? How are you allowing that? People are not going to put up with this. Businesses are not going to put up with this. This is a sad statement. I've spent a ridiculous amount of time in New York City through the years. I love it. I don't care if I ever go back there as long as this idiot's the mayor. And quite frankly, if Andrew Cuomo can't do anything about it, I feel the same way about him. You got to do something about it. You see a problem, you fix it. You see a snake, you kill it. I mean, this is the way that the world works. This is real leadership, not this crap that's going on. So, under Billy de Blasio, the last thing I'm going to say on this topic is New York City has effectively done away with bail. Okay? They've done away with bail. Now, what message are you sending to the criminals based on that? Well, what do you think the message is? Remember what I've said on this show over and over and over. Crime and lawlessness breeds other crime and lawlessness. If you're on your favorite freeway and you know there's never going to be a cop on the freeway, you can go 100 miles an hour. Go 100 miles an hour. It's the same thing. If there's no penalties to any of this, what the hell are we doing? And this is the climate that Baghdad Bill has created. It's time for somebody to show this guy the door and clean up the greatest city in America. It is getting wrecked, and it's hard to watch. Okay. The last segment of today's show are the presidential polls, and it looks like to this show's host that they are closing a little bit. Okay? Now, I've said in the beginning that these polls are going to tighten up. The country is divided almost down the middle, and I think that's the way that these national elections are pretty much going to go. Now, with the Electoral College, it's not about the popular vote. Everyone needs to understand Hillary Clinton in 2016, she doesn't let anyone forget about this, by the way. She won the popular vote, but didn't win the Electoral College. The Electoral College is set up to make sure that people don't load into one or two states and then change the whole election where no one else's vote counts. So I believe the Electoral College system is the right system for our country and what we're doing. But you take a look at these polls. The Donald took a direct hit on the coronavirus in the way that him and his administration handled it. There's no other way to discuss it. There's no other way to look at it. It's just the way it is, okay? He took about an 11 to 12 point hit, and it was directly in proportion to the coronavirus basically expanding under his watch when he was saying pretty much that it was going to go away. I mean, these are just the facts. I'm not picking on the Donald. It's the facts. Now, he's pivoted, okay? I asked him on this show, I said, you guys got to pivot because if you don't pivot, you're going to get murdered. They pivoted now. They have a different stance on masks, and they have a different stance on a few things. Testing is still an abortion for the vast majority of Americans. I'm lucky enough that I can go up to the clinic. I covered this in the last segment. And pay $250 to get test results in 2 hours. Okay? And it's available to me. I can afford to do it, and I do it. What about the people that can't afford to do it? What about the poor souls that are out of work and they're trying to figure out? What about the guy that I was telling you about? It's a friend of mine that gets a call from the health department. And he goes in and gets a test, and they tell him that the test is not even going to come in until his quarantine is over. I mean, this is ridiculous. Okay? Testing is still not available to all, and it's still not readily available with the results. Okay? What the hell good is a test if you can't get the damn thing back for almost 2 weeks? It's not very good. Roll the tape.
Go back to work. With just 99 days to go until Election Day, a new CBS News Battleground Tracker poll shows Joe Biden has a 10-point national advantage over President Trump. In the battleground state of Michigan, he leads the president by 6 points. And in nearby Ohio, the president is ahead by just 1 point. Both are states the president won in 2016. This, of course, comes during a turbulent campaign season disrupted by the pandemic. Ed O'Keefe explains from Washington.
With 99 days to go and unable to hold campaign rallies, President Trump spent the weekend golfing and greeting supporters in New Jersey, while former Vice President Joe Biden made virtual appearances at 2 fundraisers.
We need real leadership now.
New CBS News polling shows the economy, healthcare, and the pandemic are top concerns for voters. Neither candidate has an advantage on fixing the economy, but the president earns poor marks in the fight against COVID-19. That has become a central part of Biden's message.
Our president wasn't prepared for this pandemic.
Mr. Trump is portraying Biden as a dangerous pick.
Our entire economy and our very way of life are threatened by Biden's plans to transform our nation and subjugate our communities.
All right, so why did I show a clip that is 2 weeks old? Let me tell you why I did it. I wanted to now compare that, which everything that was out there is pandemic, 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 pandemic. What now is going on in today's world is the polls are starting to close a little bit to where there was maybe 11 or 12 points now. The latest indications are we might be 7, 8, 9 points now on a national poll. All right, you got to remember, everything is state driven again. But I show an older clip to be able to show the way that Trump had gotten beaten down by this virus. Now, what I hope that shows is the next round of this. I think what's going to happen is the big issues are going to be on the Republican side. How are you handling the coronavirus? And on the Democratic side, how are you handling the stimulus and how are you handling the lawlessness? This is the way that this election is breaking down. We're not telling anybody to vote for anybody. Got to look at the facts. You got to decide how this thing comes down in your own head, in your own information gathering mode. That's how you have to look at this. But clearly, based on that tape, again, that was about 2 weeks old, I wanted to show the contrast now between where they were and where I think things are going. One, Biden's still in the basement. He really comes out very rarely. He rarely faces the media, and if he does, he faces kind of the Delaware local media. I mean, it's kind of a joke, all right? But that's their view of the world about how they get this guy elected. So that's what they're doing. The Donald, on the other hand, is out in the middle. He's president of the United States. Now, he's developed a new kind of move that I'm not endorsing. So, Donald, when you're watching, please, get rid of this move. He's in press conferences now, and if he gets questions that he doesn't like, he just ends the press conference. He walks out, okay? Now, again, he's been beaten up by the press. We have to point out the facts here. He's been beaten up by the press. And the press has unfairly come after him since he's been president on a lot of subjects. Not on all, but on a lot of subjects. But you can't walk out of these press conferences. That's the worst look going, okay? You can't do that. Over on the other side, if you're Joey Biden, Joey, you can't sit in the basement until the debates. You can't do it. I'm telling you, it's going to come back and it's going to bite you because this gap is going to start to close. And the issues really become, again, this is the weirdest year with the weirdest election in the history of anybody's life. This is just unbelievable what's going on here. But we've got to call it out the way that we see it. And the way that this show sees it is that the Donald's got to quit walking out of press conferences and Joe's got to get into a few press conferences. And then we're going to start to get the information that we need in order to make educated decisions about how we're going to vote, because this whole scenario that we're dealing with now, again in Washington, based on the first segment, nobody's talking to anybody. Everybody's calling everybody names. I mean, we go through this over and over. The people of the United States are not getting represented. And the people that I feel the worst for are the people that are really in an economic hardship as it relates to the coronavirus. But you can't keep parts of the country shut down either. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere. But we're never going to find it with these people that are in Washington. They're not going to deal with each other. They're not going to find the happy median. To be quite honest with you, if Trump holds a press conference and says one thing, the Democrats 20 minutes later are going to hold a press conference and say the opposite, no matter even if what he said makes sense, and vice versa. Okay? It's not just one side, it's both sides, vice versa. The people of the United States in the single-member districts, that's how this is set up, okay? You get representative by people on the local and regional and state level that you elect, and on the national level, you know, you vote for your senators and you vote, well, the senators are local, but you vote for your president. You know, we're not getting the representation that we need, and so therefore we're getting into a situation where there's tremendous frustration. Okay, so those are the segments. In closing on the show, you know, I think here's kind of a closing thought. And that is that we need to be in a situation in the country where at least people are talking. Think about your worst conflict that you've ever had, whether it be personal, whether it be in business, whatever it was. It was never solved, I promise you, without somehow getting with the adversary that you had, whether it was family or whether it was business or otherwise. Nothing ever got solved without a discussion. Nothing ever got solved without a meeting. Nothing ever got solved without a series of meetings. But when the country gets as polarized as it is today, absolutely nothing's getting done. On one hand, the Democrats have made up their mind under any means necessary. Okay? Let me repeat. Any means necessary. They're getting rid of the Donald. That's their mark. That's their thing. They can't have him in there. They can't live with each other. They can't live with themselves. That's their move. Now, when they go too far, they're going to, in an attempt to save the ship, they're going to destroy the ship because they're going to do stupid things. And they've done them. On the Republican side, I think in Washington, as important to getting the Donald reelected, the Republicans are really concerned about making sure they don't lose the Senate. Because if the Senate ever went to the Democrats and they got the White House, the Republicans are going to be wall plants. For the next 2 to 4 years, they're going to be wall plants. I mean, they might as well just literally, you know, take a 2-year vacation because it's over. And is that good for the country? Not really. Okay? When the Republicans held all 3 houses, was that good for the country? Probably not. I think that the democracy that we live in has got to be equally based, okay? I think that's where you get the best results. But you don't get any results with the way that these people are acting. So we're going to follow it. We're going to be on top of it. I appreciate everyone for watching the show today. You can reach us again, and you can see this show on the 2B Frank Show YouTube, the 2B Frank Show Twitter, the 2B Frank Show LinkedIn, the 2B Frank Show Facebook, and the 2bfrankshow.com for those that are challenged like I am with the internet. So until Thursday, we wish everyone a safe and happy few days here, and pay attention to what's going on in the news, but don't let them gaslight you into believing that what is not is. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday. It's great to be with you. I'm your host, Frank Zaccanelli, signing off until Thursday. Take care.